Welcome to Structured Operative Obstetrics. Lecture for First Trimester Bleeding. First trimester bleeding, defined as vaginal bleeding occurring before 12 weeks of gestation, is a common occurrence, affecting 20 to 30% of all pregnancies. Understanding the causes, diagnostic approach, and management of first trimester bleeding is crucial for providing correct and timely care to patients. There are many causes of bleeding in the first trimester. Bleeding may be brief and in small volume, as with implantation bleeding, which is when the blastocyst implants into the uterine lining during a normal pregnancy. Or the bleeding can be heavy and threaten the life of the mother, as during some miscarriages. The cervix becomes more vascular in pregnancy and may bleed more easily. Or there may be a lesion like a polyp or even cancer that could cause bleeding. Bleeding can also be a sign of infection, although more rarely. Sometimes ectopic pregnancies can present with bleeding, which is usually light. A common cause of bleeding in the first trimester is early pregnancy loss, also called miscarriage or spontaneous abortion. There are different types of spontaneous abortions, also known as miscarriages. Loss of a pregnancy is called a spontaneous abortion if it occurs at less than 20 weeks of gestation or when the fetus weighs less than 500 g. Beyond this gestational age or weight, loss of a pregnancy is called a stillbirth. Threatened abortion is when there is vaginal bleeding with a closed cervix and there is an intrauterine pregnancy with a heartbeat seen on ultrasound. No products of conception have been expelled from the uterus. These pregnancies may continue to be viable to full term. In an inevitable abortion, there is bleeding and the cervix has dilated, but no products of conception have passed into the vaginal canal yet. If the cervix has dilated, the pregnancy will not continue. When there is an incomplete abortion, the cervix is dilated, and there are products of conception in the vaginal canal or which have been completely passed out of the vagina, but some remain in the endometrial cavity as well. As long as there are any products of conception in the uterus, bleeding may continue. In a complete abortion, there are no products of conception remaining in the endometrial cavity. The cervix is typically closed as the abortion has been completed. There may no longer be bleeding if all products have been expelled. In a missed abortion, the fetus is still present in the uterine cavity, but there is no fetal heartbeat on ultrasound. The cervix is closed. These patients may have had no bleeding or light bleeding. A missed abortion may be found when an ultrasound is done to determine why the uterus is smaller than expected, or to confirm gestational age or check anatomy. When there is a history of pregnancy or amenorrhea with abnormal bleeding, it is necessary to determine which of these types of spontaneous abortion is occurring or whether the bleeding is due to a cervical lesion or infection. The exam assesses for abdominal pain, uterine size, whether the cervix is open, whether products of conception are found, and how heavy the bleeding is. Speculum and bimanual exams are done. Additionally, measuring the pregnancy hormone, beta-HCG, level may help determine viability. Remember that in a normal pregnancy, the beta-HCG level peaks at 8 to 10 weeks and then drops. So, a dropping beta-HCG alone cannot be used to diagnose pregnancy loss. A transvaginal ultrasound provides information about the estimated size of the fetus, whether there is a heartbeat, or if there are any products of conception remaining in the uterus. It is possible that a transabdominal ultrasound might be helpful, but a transvaginal ultrasound can see a smaller amounts of tissue in the uterus or a smaller sac. It is important to consider the possibility of an ectopic pregnancy, especially if there is right or left lower quadrant pain together with an elevated beta-HCG, but the uterus feels small on bimanual exam, or no pregnancy is seen within the uterus on ultrasound. The most common cause of a spontaneous abortion in the first trimester is a chromosomal abnormality of the embryo which occurred at conception. It is important to explain this to the woman so she understands that loss of a pregnancy is not caused by something she has done wrong. Also, advising bed rest or limited activity is not going to change the outcome of this pregnancy. Up to 50% of threatened miscarriages may result in a live birth. If the bleeding is light, the woman should be educated to return for reassessment if bleeding becomes heavy. If the bleeding stops, she needs ongoing prenatal care. The management of incomplete or missed abortion depends on patient stability. It is essential to assess the severity of the bleeding, the presence of any complications, and the patient's preferences. Regardless of the approach chosen, future family planning options should be discussed. Three approaches are possible. Observation allows the natural expulsion of the products of conception, with close monitoring to be sure the bleeding ends and there are no complications. Medical management uses misoprostol, a prostaglandin analog, to induce uterine contractions which expel the products of conception. Surgical management includes suction curettage, a procedure to remove the contents of the uterus mechanically. Observation means to wait for the body to expel all products of conception on its own. There are no pharmacologic or surgical treatment. This approach is suitable for patients with light to moderate bleeding, no signs of infection, stable vital signs, and who have transport available to return quickly for medical care if bleeding becomes heavy. Observation alone will lead to a complete abortion without further intervention in up to 80% of cases, but it requires follow-up, patient education, and the patient's willingness to wait for the natural process to unfold. The patient can expect bleeding heavier than a menstrual period for 1 to 2 days, followed by lighter bleeding for 1 to 2 weeks. They need to return if bleeding is heavy for longer, if there are symptoms of anemia or infection, if there is severe pain, or if menses do not return in 6 weeks. In these cases, a follow-up ultrasound or serum beta-HCG may be needed, as well as pelvic exam. Medical management involves the use of misoprostol, a synthetic prostaglandin E1, to induce uterine contractions and expel the products of conception. This approach is suitable for patients with incomplete or missed abortion. Misoprostol may be administered orally, sublingually, or vaginally. A common dose is 800 micrograms of misoprostol placed high in the vagina one time. If there is no bleeding, the dose should be repeated after 48 hours. Misoprostol will result in the products of conception being completely expelled in about 80% of cases. Misoprostol use may be associated with side effects, such as cramping, bleeding, fever, and gastrointestinal symptoms. Patients should be warned about these side effects, and to expect heavier bleeding when the medication works. Cramping and bleeding that is heavy usually starts within hours of taking the medication and lasts for 3 to 5 hours. Lighter bleeding lasts an average of 9 to 16 days. Fever and shivering usually resolve and require no treatment. To ensure that your treatment has been successful, you should reassess the patient clinically in 1 to 2 weeks. They should return sooner if heavy bleeding continues or there are symptoms of infection or anemia. In those cases, repeat beta-HCG levels and hemoglobin and possibly ultrasound may help determine if there are retained products of conception which require surgical treatment. Surgical management involves suction or sharp curettage, a procedure to mechanically remove the contents of the uterus. Success if over 95%. This approach is recommended for cases with heavy bleeding, signs of infection, or failed expectant or medical management. Use of a sharp curette may be more painful and increase the risk of adhesions within the uterus compared to using a suction device. Suction curettage may be performed with a paracervical block, oral pain medication, sedation, or under anesthesia in the operating theater. Surgical management is associated with less chance of retained products of conception or excessive bleeding compared to expectant or medical management. However, there are risks associated with the procedure. These include uterine perforation, adhesions within the endometrial cavity called Asherman syndrome, or infection. Manual vacuum aspiration is a procedure using suction to evacuate uterine contents. A speculum, tenaculum, and dilators are used to help dilate the cervix to an appropriate size for the estimated size of the retained products or the gestational age. The MVA device is inserted through the cervix into the uterine cavity to aspirate tissue. MVA is indicated for incomplete abortion before 13 weeks gestation, retained products of conception, and molar pregnancy. If there is an infection, antibiotics should be started prior to performing the procedure. If there is a coagulation disorder or heavy bleeding, determine whether evacuation of the uterus is best done in the operating theater with anesthesia support or at a larger center. These are the steps to perform an MVA procedure. First, administer a paracervical block. Since this procedure is usually done with the patient awake, they may be very uncomfortable. Inject local anesthetic around the cervix to numb the area. Avoid the 3 and 9 o'clock positions, which is where the blood vessels enter the cervix. Usually, local anesthetic is infiltrated at the 4 and 8 o'clock positions. If the cervix is not open, also inject at 12 o'clock where the tenaculum will be applied. Always aspirate before injecting, and if blood is aspirated into the syringe, do not inject the local there. Move the needle and inject in a different location. It can also be helpful to give oral pain medication 1 to 2 hours before the procedure. Second, you need to dilate the cervix. If the cervix is not open prior to the procedure, you may consider giving misoprostol 400 micrograms sublingually 1 to 3 hours before the procedure or vaginally into the posterior fornix, 3 hours before the procedure to open the cervix. This helps prevent traumatic tearing of a firm, closed cervix when the dilator is inserted. As a guideline, the cannula diameter should correspond roughly to the gestational age in weeks from the LMP. For example, at 10 weeks from the LMP, choose a cannula that is 10 millimeters in diameter. This estimate will guide you as to how much you need to dilate the cervix. Thirdly, apply a tenaculum at the 12 o'clock position and insert the cannula through the cervix and into the uterus. Keep in mind the size of the uterus found on bimanual exam and do not insert the tenaculum beyond the point when mild resistance is met to avoid perforating the fundus and injuring abdominal organs. The fourth step is to apply suction. The provider attaches the cannula to a syringe and releases the valves to apply gentle suction to evacuate the uterine contents. Stop when the uterus is empty. Depending on the amount of tissue within the uterus, you may need to empty the syringe and apply suction again. The last step is to inspect the tissue to ensure complete evacuation and rule out molar pregnancy. Signs of a complete evacuation include red or pink foam in the syringe without any more tissue, a gritty sensation as the cannula passes over the uterine surface, uterine contraction around the cannula, and patient cramping. The aspirated tissue should be inspected to rule out molar pregnancy. If very little tissue was obtained in a patient who had a positive pregnancy test but who has not had an ultrasound, keep in mind the possibility of an ectopic pregnancy. Manual vacuum aspiration is safe, affordable, and easy to learn. Can be performed without electricity. It is an effective alternative to sharp curettage. The risks of the MVA procedure include hemorrhage, infection, uterine perforation, cervical laceration, Asherman syndrome, or incomplete evacuation of the uterus. You could consider giving tranexamic acid and prophylactic antibiotics to decrease bleeding and infection risk. Neither of these are routinely given. The curettage should be done gently to decrease the risk of uterine perforation or Asherman syndrome, while still ensuring complete evacuation of the uterus. Asherman syndrome is the formation of intrauterine adhesions when scar tissue forms inside the uterus or cervix. It is thought to be caused by curetting the endometrium too deeply. It can lead to infertility, repeated miscarriages, or amenorrhea and would require surgical correction. Ultrasound does not need to be done routinely after MVA to assess for POC, retained products of conception, but may be considered if the patient is still bleeding or has other concerning symptoms such as fever or pelvic pain. Post-abortion care focuses on supporting physical and emotional recovery. Patients should expect light to moderate bleeding and some cramping for up to a few weeks. Manage pain with over-the-counter medications and avoid intercourse until bleeding stops. It's important to watch for warning signs such as heavy bleeding, severe pain, fever, or foul discharge, and to seek medical attention if these occur. Emotional well-being is also crucial. Support and counseling can help individuals cope with their feelings. Additionally, fertility returns quickly after abortion, so discussing contraception options with a healthcare provider before resuming sexual activity is recommended. Encourage patients to reach out to their healthcare provider or local health services for further information and support. To conclude, we will discuss the key takeaways. First trimester bleeding is common. It requires prompt evaluation and appropriate management. The initial goal is to assess the patient's stability, and then to determine what the reason is for the bleeding. Spontaneous abortion is the most common cause of first trimester bleeding, with various types requiring different management approaches. Manual vacuum aspiration is an easy-to-learn, cost-effective, and accessible method to evacuate the uterine contents. You should be aware of the steps of the procedure and possible complications. After expectant, medical, or surgical management, family planning should be discussed.